Hey everyone, in this video today I'm going to go over the patch notes for the upcoming version 1.0.0.8 of Grim Dawn. I was reading through these patch notes and there are a couple kind of significant things I want to point out, and we'll get to those as we go through the list. But to me, it's significant enough to do a little video on it, though it's not anything like obscenely crazy they're changing in the game. So let's get right into it. The major new features: Alkamos in the Steps of Torment and Sharzul in the Bastion of Chaos can now drop new legendary versions of the unique equipment on Elite and Ultimate. This is one of the big things, and I think it's pretty cool, because if you've ever gotten an Alkamos Scythe, you know it can actually roll really well. And if it rolls really well, it can be a really awesome two-hander, because it's a ghost scythe, for one. For two, the spirit strike thing you get is pretty cool. And I mean, it's just an all-around cool weapon. Oh, excuse me. Sharzul's Incinerator, not a bad epic. Though, I mean, I don't think I've ever used it. But having a legendary Alkamos Scythe and a legendary Sharzul Incinerator is pretty cool. It also kind of brings it in line with the Scepter of Eldritch you can get from Valbury. So yeah, nice little addition that can be a fun thing to farm up. And, well, I mean, fun for Alkamos, because he's not actually that difficult to deal with. Pain in the ass for Sharzul, because, I mean, he's Sharzul. He's just a pain. Oh, so many fire tornadoes. So anyways, yeah, that's just a really cool addition, and it kind of incentivizes more going into these places, especially if the weapons have special properties. So, like, Eldritch's Scepter has the elemental damage converted to aether damage property, aside from being a good, caster weapon. That makes it, that feature of having that weird conversion makes it desirable as an item, because it can enable a lot of builds to do some pretty crazy things. Like, say, have a druid that predominantly uses tornadoes and meteors and is geared for lots of aether damage because you have it using aether lightning from that one set, the Aether Storm set. Oh, hey, look at that. Now your meteors and your lightning bolts from Maelstrom all have aether damage. Yeah, it's actually kind of a cool thing to add to that character. So getting a cool Alkamos Scythe and a cool Sharzul Incinerator can be good additions to the game if they do something special like that. So let's see, weapon tooltips now display attacks per second value rather than speed. This is sort of a quality of life thing, because if you look at weapons, they'll say like very fast, fast, normal, slow, very slow, and that doesn't mean jack squat to anyone really. It just sort of rates the weapon as to how fast it attacks, and it doesn't actually tell you how many attacks per second you're going to get. So the weapons are going to be changed to have that as a base thing, so you'll be able to see how fast your weapon is actually going to attack for you, instead of just getting this vague wording on it. The character sheet now displays an attacks per second value, modified by all speed bonuses and penalties. Again, a nice little quality of life enhancement, because having percent attack speed on there, I mean, obviously you still want that, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't know how many attacks per second you're really getting. Player resistances on the character sheet now show the resistance amount over maximum cap in their tooltips. This is one I was thinking of the other day, actually, and how it would be awesome to actually see how much you have in all of your resistances beyond your cap, so you know how to adjust accordingly. Now, there are some bosses that do reduce your elemental resistances. So, like, Valdarin actually has a debuff that gets put on you while you're fighting him that lowers your elemental resistance. So you're probably going to want to over-cap your elemental res to keep it near the cap, as best you can, if you're going to be hunting him a lot. But if you either don't care about that, or you're really, really over-leveled, over-geared for elemental resistance, you might want to know that. So having this in there is a great little quality of life enhancement. And, yeah, I'm glad they put that in. So let's see. So skill augments now will will now be grayed out. Wait. Plus skill augments will now be grayed out if the corresponding mastery is not selected. Okay. Plus skill augments will now be grayed out if the corresponding mastery is not selected. So is that on weapons, like, that would give you bonuses to skills you don't have in your... Okay, yeah, I think that's what it is. Because it says augments, and I'm like, where are there augments that give you plus skills? I think that sentence might be referring to items that have... Like, let's say you're an Arcanist Demolitionist and you get something that gives plus to Soldier. It'll be grayed out on items. If that's how I'm interpreting that correctly. I don't know, the word augments there is throwing me off a bit. So let's see. Added maximum speed cap values to attack, cast, and move speed tooltips on character sheet. So this information is available within the game for easy reference rather than researched outside the game. Again, that's a bit of a quality of life enhancement. Given that a lot of people don't actually know there is a 200% cast speed cap and I think it's like 135%? 140% cast speed on movement speed. That'll be helpful to have in the actual game. So let's see. Crucible. I don't care. Tech. Fix the display issue with attack speed on the character sheet that would result in different attack speed caps based on weapon type. Display was only no impact. Okay. Added explosive strike and nightfall damage to character sheet DPS and damage per hit calculations for fire strike and shadow strike respectively. Fixed Shaman's Torrent not working properly with ranged weapons. Fixed an issue where weapon swapping would become stuck if the player was trapped while charging towards a target. Fixed the game hitch that occurred with plus skill augment items. Bandit forges and other quest destructibles are no longer destroyable enemies. Thank you. This one, holy crap, have I been annoyed by having enemies destroy those forges and not getting the quest credit for it. That's what I think was happening. If you've ever gone through Four Hills a lot, you'll know that sometimes you'll see a bandit forge explode, and you don't know what's doing that. And then it doesn't give you the quest credit, and it's like, why did that happen? And I think that's why that happened. So yeah, that should be another nice little quality of life enhancement. Fix an instance where a client's components would become desynchronized with the host. Fixed equipment with illusions using wrong texture after a player was frozen or petrified. I think this is for the people that got like the George Washington wig and that stuff. Fixed another instance where the displayed pet bars in multiplayer game would not be properly removed. Fixed damage absorption not showing up properly on skills with no points in them. Okay. Game updated the difficulty curve such that the jump between difficulties is not as extreme. Difficulty now scales more with the player level so that elite and ultimate naturally become harder as the player's power increases, resulting in a smoother progression overall. Note that there is still an increase in challenge when moving up to elite or ultimate, but it is no longer as severe. So this is another kind of big change that doesn't seem like it'd have a huge impact immediately, or outward impact. So what this means is, when you're leveling your character up in Elite and Ultimate, you shouldn't feel overwhelmed by the enemies, but you're still going to get that challenge boost that happens when you jump to Elite and then jump to Ultimate. But if you're really, really overleveled, it will scale that level up even more. So it's something that should help with players jumping into Elite or from, normal veteran and just getting absolutely wrecked. Same thing with going from Elite to Ultimate and just getting your face pushed in by the first group of zombies you see. Like, this should change that, make it a little better and a little smoother for people that want to advance in the game. But it also doesn't sound like they're making the game any easier. They're just making it, like, being 85 in Ultimate is still going to provide you with a challenge. It's just, you're going to have, slightly less trouble getting there, which I don't actually mind. So let's see. Slightly reduced Nemesis boss offensive ability. I'm fine with that. Slightly reduced physical damage dealt by monsters on ultimate difficulty. I'm also fine with that. Fixed an issue with Steps to Torment achievements involving Alcamos. Fixed an issue with a bounty for the outcast targeting Alcamos being impossible to complete. This may This may cause your bounty for the quest to reset. Corey the Keeper now offers an item that allows you to remove an applied illusion. Rover merchants no longer have an unusually high ratio for purchasing. Oh yeah, so this is a fun little glitch that existed in the game. The Rover merchant, not the faction merchant, but the merchant that's in the Rover camp, he will buy things, or before this patch, he would have bought things for more iron from you. So you can pawn all your items off to him and just get more iron off of those items. Okay, slightly increased energy regen gained from spirit. I'm totally up for that. Jeez, it's one of the biggest problems with my Aether Ray guy is, you know, energy regen, and even a little tiny bit is gonna be like really, really nice. Devotion shrines now have a much higher chance of generating rare items rather than white or magic items, particularly on Elite and Ultimate. Totally fine with that. It's never a good feeling when you go to like one of the shrines that requires a relic, and you go and make the relic, and then you come back out and it gives you like nothing. So, I mean, aside from the point. Increased chance of generating rare items from treasure troves and one-shot chests, particularly on Elite and Ultimate. See, I'm totally fine with this as well. One of the things I've learned from that green sorcerer is that rare items can be stupid good. And he's completely kitted out in them except for his belt and his medal, which are both technically legendaries. And I guess your relic is legendary too, but everything else he has is green, and you can get some crazy stuff going on green items. So the more chances of getting rares, I'm actually completely up for. Okay, so here's the next really big change. Auras granted by components have been converted to self-buffs. This is done in response to the rare issues reported in regards of those auras killing players in multiplayer, particularly in hardcore mode. While this is not an ideal solution, unfortunately this issue has eluded us for too long, to the detriment of the players. Our programmers had spent extensive periods of time digging in the code without any repro to lead them to the probable cause, despite the community trying to contribute as much info as possible. And though we made changes as recently as 1007, with the hope of addressing this issue, it has persisted. As this change is detrimental to pet builds, these skills now give pet bonuses. Should this bug persist with other auras granted by items, we will take similar action on them in the future. So I don't know how many of you have actually played multiplayer in Grim Dawn, but if you have like the Aether Aura, Fire Aura, Lightning Aura, Cold Aura things from like Coldstone, Wrathstone, whatever the heck the fire one is, Flint Core Bolts, not Searing Ember. I don't remember it. So I'm just blanking on it, but whatever. You know what I mean, those auras that you can turn on your character. Well, there were rare times when you'd hop into a game, pop that aura on, and all of a sudden, as a dot on your allies in town, they'd start taking damage. So, it's a little damage, but because it's an aura that's always on, it would actually just start popping them periodically. So you could actually kill your allies in town, just in game, while you had this aura on, because you turn it on and you just hear and suddenly your friends are all dying around you. And there's no real determinate cause of it. So now these auras are just going to be changed to self-buffs. So they're just going to affect you, and then they're going to carry pet bonuses. Presumably they're just going to pass that, whatever the damages are you gain, onto your pets, so that you can just straight up use them the way people have been using them before, for giving elemental damage to your pets. So yeah, that's kind of it's a significant change to people who've been playing the game for a long time, who've been kind of used to those auras being around. They're still going to be around, they're just going to be self-buffs. It's going to be kind of a weird change for passing your damages on to your friends, though. Not that that was a big aspect of it, but it did kind of happen. Like, it was kind of a thing. So yeah, this is kind of along the lines of like components losing the completion bonuses. It's just a change to components in the game. Okay, next thing. A pass has been done on magical affix drop tables to remove less desirable affixes from the loot pool in order to improve loot quality while leveling. As most of those affixes were already disabled at higher levels, This will have little impact at max level. This change is not retroactive. If you already have an item with one of those affixes, it will remain unchanged. So yeah, I don't know what the affixes would be that would be undesirable at lower levels, but you'll see them less often. I mean, it's a change that's gonna do something, for sure. So fix an issue that caused certain rare affixes to not be generated on various two-handed weapons. Reduced % weapon damage on most item skill procs. That's interesting. I wonder if the reason for that is like people maybe trying to get lifesteal where they couldn't get it before. Excuse me while I take a sip of water. But hey, I mean, I'm fine with that change. It's not like it's a huge one. So, Legendary Agony, reduced poison res, reduction to -15, but increases damage. Arcane Harmony leg guards, increased defensive ability. Avatar Mercy, reduced cooldown. Black Gem. I'm just gonna go through these real quick, to sort of go over what just see if there's anything big. So, Baranath Reforged replaced the movement speed with total speed. That is awesome. Because Baranath Reforged, it's sort of just like a really good weapon that doesn't do anything for you, really. There's no special abilities. It's almost a niche item because I think it's like elemental and internal trauma damages on it. And it always had movement speed, which was weird. Now it just has total speed, which is great. Now it'll help with, like, if you're a caster and you want just a general DPS stick, you can go for Baranath Reforged. If you're doing like a warrior that's using elemental with their internal trauma damage, you get the attack speed out of it. So all in all, that's a nice little change there. So let's see. Bone Shatter Treads get bleed res. Bone Weave Leggings get defensive ability. Dressers of Barbaros added defensive ability. On the skill proc, reduced duration to 10 seconds. Reduced cooldown to 15 seconds. Increased all damage to 75. Added armor. I don't really remember what that proc was, but there it is. Shieldred Mantle, increased elemental res, reduced chance on hit activating. Skill proc to 33, okay. Colossal Grasp. That's an interesting one. Grants a bonus attack speed when using a shield. Demon's Cage Halberd added 5 physical res, increased health, resistance reduction skill proc, but increased its damage, reduced cooldown, duration, added defensibility reduction. Okay. Devil Tongue gives health. Dracaris gives casting speed. Increased duration, reduced cooldown, increased chaos fire damage. If I remember right, Dracaris is more... What the hell is Dracaris? It's an axe, right? Or is it a gun? I don't remember. If it's a chaos fire thing, I think cast speed might be helpful for it. Dread Armor of Azragar added chaos res to the Grantadora. Cool. Essence of Grim Dawn reduced the cooldown on the skill proc. Extremists added total speed. Footpads of the Grey Magi increased the defensive ability. Skill proc also reduces. Okay, that's actually not bad. But Footpads of the Grey are kind of an okay legendary, but not great. Like as boots, because Survival Instincts, like, it's not a great proc to begin with. But getting it more, I guess, is fine. Like every 8 seconds just to get that boost of speed. But you also get the physical res. I mean, it could be an interesting item now. Fiend Scale Jacket, Aether Res. Increased damage and spread intensity on the skill proc. Fiend Flesh Mantle, reduced cooldown. Golemborn Greaves. Okay, this is kind of a big one, but I don't think it's big enough. Golemborn Greaves, reduce the armor bonus on the skill proc to 200. I think, personally, it should be like 100 to 150. Right now it's ridiculous. It's like borderline broken. That skill proc that gives you 300 armor, what you don't realize, I mean, that doesn't sound great. Like 300 armor, that doesn't sound like a lot. But the way armor bonuses work is that's 300 armor to every piece of armor. That's a huge bonus on that. So 200 armor on every armor piece, still really crazy. And I do think it needs to be toned down more. I'm actually avoiding equipping Golemborn Greaves right now, specifically because I think they might get super neutered, and I kind of think that they're a little on the, I wouldn't say broken, they're just ridiculously good, so I kind of want to remove them from characters for other pieces of gear in that slot, just so I don't become, and I recommend this to people out there, so you don't become just addicted to those boots. So you don't become just too used to having that proc. So Gut Ripper, reduced defensive ability reduction, okay. Harbinger of Eternal Suffering, reduced damage out by Harbinger's Mark. Hellborn, increased cooldown. Herald Blazing Ends, increased burn damage. Feral Knight's Face Guard, increased cooldown, Wave of Fire. Invoker Set, increased offensive ability bonus. Invoker's Fury proc, now reduced elemental res instead of... Okay, that's actually really good. Because if you know what the Invoker set is, it's the Panetti's Replicating Missile set. It's a ring amulet offhand set. And it has this proc on it that puts a mark on enemies that reduces their fire lightning resistance. Now it's just elemental res. And given that, Panetti's is all 3 elementals plus Aether, that's pretty good. That's actually possibly big for a Panetti's build, because now Panetti's is getting 1/3 of its entire damages buffed from that. So yes, that's a very good change there. Scoundrel's Unity set added 50 defensive ability bonus, which is cool. And they reduced the physical res to 16%, which makes sense to me. I think it's like 20%, so having it reduced to something that's more in line with what you get from other legendaries is totally fine. Let's see, Corvoron's Chest Guard added 302 health. Corvoron's Chest Guard, if I recall correctly, it's the Phantasmal Blades chest piece, and it has like a laundry list of bonuses on it. So getting another bonus in there actually sounds kind of funny to me. Mantle of Drieg added Aether Res, reduced poison resistance to 19. Mark of Divinity increased the cooldown on the skill to 120 seconds. Now I don't know the cooldown on that skill by heart. That might be a huge nerf. Because Mark of Divinity, Pretty Great Pants, Golemborn Greaves, and Tinker's Ingenuity, those 4 items can pretty much go on any character to up their survivability immensely. And Mark of Divinity and Tinker's Ingenuity, in particular, together, make you borderline immortal if you're about to die. So it can get you out of any situation. Having this proc on a higher cooldown, I don't think it completely destroys Mark of Divinity, but it does help, like, reduce what that item's craziness is. And that item, trust me, Mark of Divinity, believe you me, it is kind of a crazy item, especially when combined with Tinker's Ingenuity and Pretty Great Pants. And it's kind of a good thing that they're doing that, just so there aren't like best in slot on every single build in the game items. Which Tinker's Ingenuity, there's a little nerf here, but I don't know if it's enough to actually make it not best in slot for a belt. We'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, I don't mind like really crazy items like Golemborn Greaves and Mark of Divinity getting nerfs, because it just makes them more in line with what the other items in the game are. So Mark of the Apostates, reduced cooldown on skill proc. So Markovians Fortress set, reduced physical damage bonus to 18 to 28, reduced the cooldown reduction from the proc to 1 second, and reduced its cooldown to 4 seconds. So from proc to 1 second. Wait, reduced cooldown reduction from proc to... Okay. So if I recall correctly, the Markovians... Markovians Fortress set, isn't it proc like it dings and then you get your cooldowns reduced? So they're reducing the cooldown reduction. But it'll happen every 4 seconds. So it basically speeds your cooldowns up on a cooldown. It's one of those. But I think it's 3 seconds right now. That's a pretty interesting concept, because a lot of those things, usually the cooldown reduction is on a high cooldown itself. So yeah, that'll be pretty interesting. So Markovian's Bulwark. Oh yeah, this is one of those things where it makes me think that like running Force Wave or what is it? Blade Arc, or if you're even doing like a Warder and you're doing Primal Strike, running it on a cooldown might be better, ultimately, with like a main attack like Cadence or Savagery, and then using the Markovians Fortress proc to speed that cooldown up. Is definitely a build you can do with that. So, Markovians Bulwark, reduce max pierce res. Distinction, reduce max pierce res. Visor, fixed missing physical damage dealt by the skill proc. This skill was dealing significantly less damage than intended, so a correction on that piece. Mask of the Harbinger, Harbinger's aim no longer grants crit damage. Mind Warp, added cast speed, increased attack speed. Mind Warp is one of those weird items where I can't think of any Battle Mage, like specifically Battle Mage centric items, but there's Mind Warp. And adding casting speed, I think really needed to be done, because one of the things you'd use it with is Calidor's Tempest. And, I mean, you want cast speed with Calidor's Tempest, so now it has it. So it can actually help with builds that are based around spells, but you still want the Mind Warp sword. I still don't know if I'd ever use it with Cadence, which is kind of funny, though. Gonzalo's leg wraps. Remove the poison resist reduction on skill proc, but increased its damage and added a speed reduction. Pretty Great Pants. Increased the chaos res. Okay. They are only okay. I mean, yeah. So, Sash of the Immortal Sage. Increased the cooldown on Wave of Fire. Ring of the Black Matriarch. Skill proc. Has a cooldown. Siegebreaker, reduce max pierce res. To me, Ring of the Black Matriarch, whenever you see a skill proc now has a tiny cooldown, that's usually just to keep the animations clean. Because Albrecht's Aether has like a tiny cooldown on it. I'm sure people out there have noticed that. That's not to prevent you from like turning the beam off and on, although I'm sure that's part of it. That's more about keeping the animation of the beam smooth. Siegebreaker, reduced max pierce res, reduced weapon stun, Storm Cage League guards, increased defense ability, Storm Titan Treads. Skill proc now reduces enemy damage by 10%. Ooh, that's interesting. Tinker's Ingenuity, remove damage absorption from the skill proc. So, Tinker's Ingenuity, as I mentioned before, that plus Pretty Great Pants, plus Mark of Divinity, plus Golemborn Greaves, great defensive kit. Tinker's Ingenuity, the belt itself is, I think, why it's really fantastically great. Not the proc. The proc is helpful, don't get me wrong. It's like that little heal plus you gain 15% damage absorption. I mean, yeah, not going to complain about that. But the reason it is best in slot, in my opinion, is because it gives you like 60 poison res and 60 bleed res, and increases your max resistances in those two resistance categories. So, I think I use it on all my characters, but I mostly use it for the resistances more than the proc. The proc is great, and the procking next to Mark of Divinity is great. The procking along with Pretty Great Prance's proc is great. The procking with Golemborn Greaves' proc is great. But I do mostly use that for its crazy resistances it gives you. Now, in the future that may change because of the damage absorption going away, but I think the Tinker's Ingenuity needs maybe a rework to not have crazy, awesome poison, acid, and bleeding resistances. Because I've always found bleeding resistance to be a little tricky to get on a lot of characters. But, I mean, maybe reduce the poison acid res, or even change it to something else. I mean, a non-resistant stat, so Tinker's Ingenuity is the bleed resistance belt. Like, it's almost too good stat-wise, a belt. That may just be me, though. So Tinker's Ingenuity, I love it, it's great, but it might just be too good a stat block on a single item. Let me know what you guys think of that. Because Tinker's Ingenuity, to me, it's not so much its proc that makes it ridiculous. It's the fact that it covers two resistances almost completely in Ultimate. Like, not poison acid as much, but bleeding, it covers bleeding, like, perfectly. It's what I use to basically get my core of bleeding resistance. And, I mean, it's even such a good belt that my green sorcerer I've been harping on for a while is using it. I know it's not a green, but I don't know. It just feels like it's too good a stat block of stuff on a single item, at least in my opinion. So, Death Mark set. Increased cold resistance reduction on granted skill. Okie dokie. Northern Worm added 10% attack speed. Added frostburn damage on skill proc. Northern Worm, I kind of wanted to build around that, but I don't know if adding a little bit of attack speed is going to make that as appealing. Okay, Venomblade Pact. Skill proc now has a 0.5 per second cooldown. Again, same thing what I mentioned before with, what was it? Ring of the Black Matriarch? Probably just to smooth the skill out. Untouchable. Reduce physical procs. Okay. Increased defensive ability. Trojan's Ascension set. Fallen Comet now reduces all resistances by 16 for 3 seconds. Freeze duration increased to 3 seconds. That's awesome. Trojan's Ascension as a set pales in comparison to Iskandra's, in my opinion, for an Arcanist. Having that, though, having the Comet reduced resistances, might make me pick it up now. If it just... That's a pretty significant increase of potential DPS off of Fallen Comet that actually has sort of grabbed my attention on potentially equipping that set. Ultos Hood, reduce the physical resistance, health, okay. Ultos Pauldrons, reduce physical resistance. Ultos Avatar, increased attack speed. Okay. Heart of Ulzin, added health. Ulzin's Flame Spreader, increased offensive ability, added health. Waldron's Rifle, added Chaos Res. Hey, look at that. Venom Spine Greaves, added defensive ability. Vestments of the Great Guardian, replaced Poison Resist on granted aura with Chaos Res. That's interesting. Vile Blood Mantle. On the skill proc, removes bleed resist reduction, increased damage dealt, chance to confuse for 2 seconds, and reduce cooldown. I don't even remember what the Vile Blood Mantle is. Voidwalker Foot Pads, added defensive ability. Skill proc now absorbs poison damage. Absorption increased to 6,000. What? So wait. So Voidwalker's Foot Pads were really good. Like, they're kind of a niche boot, because they have that proc that absorbs chaos damage. So now it's adding poison damage onto it, or is it replacing the cat? So yeah, either way, I would assume it's adding the poison damage into that, but also increasing the absorption to 6,000. Like that's really just solid. And I have a ton of those boots too. Nothing to, like, no character to put them on. This, I'm not gonna lie, I might carry, like, these boots around with me. I think there's also Wormscale, is it Wormscale foot guards? Oh, okay. I may carry around a pair of Voidwalkers and a pair of the Wormscales just to hot swap them while I'm in the field. When I'm like, okay, I'm going in the, you know, what? The Bastion of Chaos. I'm gonna flip on my Voidwalkers and get this amazing amount of chaos and poison absorption. Or I'm going through Log Heron, or I'm going to fight Log Heron. There you go. Go to fight Log Heron, throw those boots on regardless of the character. Okay, Vortex of Souls, reduce attack speed. Warborn set, increased cooldown on skill proc to 7 seconds, duration to 10 seconds. Okay. Warborn Gavel, slightly reduced damage dealt by Earthquake proc. Wild's Horn Leg Reps, increased defensibility when she agrees. Added Poison Res. And a skill proc. What? So, wait, huh? When she agrees, added poison res, comma, skill proc. Is there a missing sentence right there? Like, is this going to be a surprise to people who have the when she agrees that we're going to have a skill proc on it now? Wraithborn Leg Reps, added defensive ability. Not going to argue. Wormbone Handguards, added cast speed. Okay, Wormscale Foot Pads, added defensive ability. Skill now absorbs elemental and bleed damage. Absorption increased to 6,000. So, it used to just be lightning and fire. These, potentially now, I'm not going to say best in slot, period. If I recall correctly, they're like fire lightning boots. But I'm just saying, There's a lot of elemental damage in the game, and bleeding res, kind of difficult to get a lot of resistance for. And you kind of gotta go out of your way for it, or equip Tinker's Ingenuity. This may help with that. And like I said, I may just carry around a pair of these and a pair of these for every character now. Okay, Zolhan's Revenge. I don't even know what that item is. Reduce max pierce res. So, the epic stuff. Let's just see. Spell Weaving. Okay, here's an interesting one. Bonuses increase to match single element magic suffixes. Spell Weaving suffixes are now effectively superior versions of single element magic suffixes. So you know the suffixes that are like of the Aether, of I think it's like Flame, Frostbite, you know, all those things that are like they just give you flat, or I should say percent damage to one damage type. Spell Weaving is now 2 of those together. So yeah, that's potentially going to make Spell Weaving really, really, really crazy. Rare Suffix, Insanity. Remove the chance to convert enemies. I hope they put something in there to replace that. Not just remove the mind control. Just to make Insanity, like, cool. So, yeah. Relics. Reduced cooldown reduction from the proc to 1 second. This relic continues to perform a little too well overall, particularly for Blade Masters. Yeah, Blagothian's Carnage is kinda crazy. Why have one Amaras's Blade Burst set as high when you can have 2? So let's see, Dreeg's Affliction. Slightly reduced poison damage on Dreeg's afflicted spine, and reduce the number of projectiles to 15. Maynard's Bastion. Reduced the damage absorption to 15, replaced physical resistance with 30% armor. Nemesis. I'm excited for this one because I use this guy on a character. Added 9 cold damage. Nemesis Pet now deals pierce and cold damage rather than physical and bleed. Damage increased and his attacks have a chance to reduce defensive ability. The Nemesis Relic, it's really cool to get that pet. And anyone can carry that pet around because it scales with your player bonuses. But like, the characters that want that pet use different damages than it does, really. So now it's like, oh, it deals cold damage. I have an Amarastas guy that carries that pet around because it's cool to have the pet. Now the pet's actually going to do something for him. Oh, and it also reduces defensive ability now. Nice buff to that relic. Illyrian's Wrath. Reduced the weapon damage on skill proc to 20%. Reckoning. Reduced physical res. Reduced, okay. Component. Haunted Steel. Added 10% physical delta's vitality. Reduced the damage converted health. Okay. And Bloodthirster 24. Hallowed Fang. Reduced the lifesteal. Markadreeg. Reduced poison damage. Reduced projectiles. Oh, that sucks. That thing's so great for just popping a ton of poison everywhere. Oh. Sad to see it not be as crazy. Resilient Plating, increased defensive ability and pierce res. Restless Remains, increased energy bonus and chance of current life retaliation to 20%. Chance of... okay. Lifesteal, reduced damage... okay, that's all pretty, like, just tweaky stuff, I think. So... okay, classes and skills. The next laundry lists I'm going to read through. So the first thing, general thing for classes and skills. A variety of class skills have received buffs at low levels in order to front-load some of their potential and make leveling with them a smoother experience. This is a buff to those skills in general, but is more substantial at lower ranks. So here I am doing this whole leveling series, possibly another one with a Witchblade, and lo and behold, we get low-level buffs to abilities. Yes, my life just got a little easier. I don't know what they are. We'll see what happens when we get to the actual classes, but we're going to do Devotion first, as that is first on the list. So, this is the Devotion Constellations themselves. Affliction, increased defensive ability. Amatok, Spirit of Winter, increase the health, Frostburn damage, cold damage, added defensive ability. Anvil increased defensive ability. Berserker increased the physical damage. Increased pierce res, removed percent damage converted to health bonus. Blades of Nadan reduced attack speed. Blind Sage added defensive ability, increased burn, frostburn, electrocute damages. Crab increased defensive ability. Dire Bear added armor, removed attack speed. Dying God added defensive ability. Eel increased defensive ability. Fox reduced bleed damage. Gallows increased health. Ghoul added defensive ability. Guardian's Gaze added vitality res. Harpy added energy regen. Wait, which one's the Harpy? Oh, right. That's actually pretty nice. Harvestman's Scythe added defensive ability. Huntress added cunning, increased offensive ability, reduced bleed damage. There's a lot of reduced bleed damage things throughout a lot of stuff in these patch notes. Hydra increased all damage by 25, increased offensive ability, increased offensive ability. Imp added defensive ability. They're also adding defensive ability more, and I think they maybe want to push that stat a bit more to just give people more options for it, seems like. So Jackal added cast speed. Leviathan increased defensive ability. Light of Empyrean added defensive ability. Magi added defensive ability, increased burn damage. Manticore increased offensive ability. Mogdragon the Wolf added defensive ability, reduced bleed damage. Oaklane's Lantern added defensive ability. O'Liran reduced physical damage. Owl added defensive ability, increased burn, frostburn, and electrocute. Panther increased energy regen. Revenant added 100 health and cast speed, increased vitality res by 24%. Is the Revenant the best constellation in the game now? Seriously. Like, I've gone through this list of patch notes already, and there's something that the Revenant does that on top of this, it's crazy. So before the Revenant just did attack speed, and it was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of wasted on the people that want to pick the Revenant up. And it has all of this attack damage converted to health things, which again, kind of wasted on casters, but is still helpful to have on most characters, because you'll find something that can deal weapon damage, and you'll get that little bit of lifesteal in there. Now it gives vitality res, or it increased the vitality res it gives, and it adds more health and it adds cast speed. That's awesome. Revenant is an insane constellation right now. It's going to be insane in 1008. Rowan's Scepter increased defensive ability. Sailor's Guide added defensive ability. Scholar's Light added defensive ability, increased energy regen. Solo's Witchblade added defensive ability. Targo the Builder, the Spider, excuse me, increased defensive ability, added cast speed, or increased cast speed. Targo the Builder increased defensive ability. Tsunami added defensive ability. Turtle increased defensive ability. Unknown Soldier increased health, reduced pierce damage, removed the lifesteal. Wolverine increased defensive ability. So all in all, the constellations pushing defensive ability a bit more. I'm not gonna argue with that. Totally fine with more defensive ability. Seem to be reducing bleed damages, pulling the lifesteal out of things, and making the Revenant stupid ridiculous. So here are the changes to devotion abilities, starting here. Acid Spray reduced resistance reduction to 25. Blizzard slightly increased damage. Assassin's Mark reduced the resistance reduction. Blade Burst. Where's there a Blade Burst? Reduced weapon damage to 80%, increased base pierce damage. I'm a little confused about that. Blade Burst. Where's there a Blade Burst in the constellations? Huh. That might be a miscopy. Blade Burst in Constellations. I don't know. Blind Fury, reduced weapon damage, increased bleed and internal trauma damage. So I know that's the thing on Illyrin. Bull Rush, reduced weapon damage, increased physical and internal trauma damage. Elemental Seeker. Seekers now last shorter duration before exploding. Their ambient damage has been increased to compensate for their reduced duration. I'm totally fine with that, actually. Having more powerful Seekers that explode more often sounds really, really nice, because you get a crap ton of those things. Falcon Soup, reduce the weapon damage, increase base physical damage. Fissure, slightly increased damage, chance to stun now scales with rank to 25%. Guardian's Gaze, increased chaos damage. Ghoulish Hunger, now activates at 45% health. It's because your skill assignment to reset for the celestial power. Light of Empyrean, the proc, now applies a damage reduction debuff instead of reduced armor. I don't know how I feel about that. So I'm gonna say my Dawnbreaker, because less armor means you hit harder. That's kind of what you kind of want that a little bit more with that tank, because you do kind of sometimes have trouble hitting hard. But then again, reducing the damage the enemies deal to you means you don't have to gear as tanky. So, I don't know, we'll see how that works out. We'll see how big of a damage reduction debuff it is. I think all around it's gonna be fine, but I don't know if like Light of the Empyrean, I don't know if anyone feels this way, but I kind of feel like it's gotten the beat stick, gotten the nerf stick for no reason. Like, I feel like since the start of the devotion system, there's been a nerf, unnecessary nerf to Light of Empyrean, and I don't exactly know why. That may just be me, though. This, I don't know if I mean, yeah, if you reduce the target's damages, then you don't have to worry about tankiness as much. And Light of the Empyrean can then also be used for more characters beyond tanks. Because if you hit this debuff and you're not a super tank, well, you can do a little more tanking. So, I guess it's maybe a buff compared to reduced armor. We'll have to wait and see. Living Shadow, increased base damage. Mark of Wendigo, reduced damage converted to health. Maul, reduced weapon damage, increased physical damage. Meteor Shower, Thermite Mines can no longer... Okay, Thermite Mines can no longer be assigned to this proc. Slightly increased damage. This may cause your skill assignment to reset for this celestial power. I get a kick out of that because Thermite Mines are ridiculous for proccing devotion abilities. Any devotion ability, you'll get a ton of procs with it. Thermite Mines with Meteor Shower were stupid, and I'm actually kind of glad this has happened, because you just 1 point Thermite Mines, and suddenly you have this thing where any enemy that just runs through the mines gets you a Meteor Shower, and it's like, yeah, there's a cooldown on the Meteor Shower, so it's not constant, but man, was it a ridiculous thing to have on a character. And I'm actually glad that they're taking it out. So now you actually have to try a little bit harder to get Meteor Shower, though not that hard. Because all you do now is 1 point on Blackwater Cocktail, click your meteors on that, and just spam your cocktails, and it does the same exact thing. But still, Thermite Mines, it was ridiculous to be able to have those out, and you have 6 of them that can proc these, that you don't even need to worry about aiming, really. So here is the big change in this that basically prompted me to do this video. Okay, Raise the Dead. Pet duration increased to 40 seconds by max rank. Skeletons now deal Aether and Vitality damage and scale with player bonuses rather than scaling with pet bonuses. Let me say that again. Skeletons now deal Aether and Vitality damage and scale with player bonuses rather than pet bonuses. Skeletons are now Aether Vitality, scaling with you. This means if you're running Albrecht's Aether Ray, Calidor's Tempest, or whatever the heck crap Vitality damage paling in comparison to Albrecht's Aether Ray ability you're running, Skeletons are now in the mix. So now I was talking about the Revenant being ridiculous thanks to this line. This, Raise the Dead, maybe jacks it up even higher in terms of ridiculousness. Also, I think it's hinting on what maybe the 8th Mastery might bring to the table in terms of damages, and what it might do, what it might want to do. It also means the Revenant pretty much going to be an Albrecht's Aether Ray standard. Possibly even the thing you put on the beam itself to get your skeletons out, and have tons of Aether damage dealing skeletons that also slow the enemies. So let me read the rest. It's Christmas in January/February now. I don't know when they're going to release this patch. Hell, they might even have released it when I'm recording this because it's a Tuesday. But, yeah. Pets dealing Aether Vitality damage that scale with your player bonuses is something I've wanted for a long time. So this is going to go on a lot of characters for me. And yeah, it's awesome. So this proc has always been a bit of a niche, but as other options already exist via itemization for more hybrid pet summoning builds, it seemed better to focus Raise the Dead to be an option for direct damage builds that like the idea of having pets around but not necessarily excel at them. Damage may require further refinement, but the skeletons are now harder to kill, move faster, and last longer. So, okay. This is exactly what I wanted this skill to be off the bat. And I don't mean that for the Aether damage. I mean, Raise the Dead as an ability in a pet build is useless. Because in a pet build, you want your pets to do your work for you. And you can't assign Raise the Dead to pets to get the Raise the Dead out. You know, you have to be the one doing the killing, which means you have to be active. On the other hand, if you're active in a build, like, you don't do pets because you're active then. So the only time I think I've ever used Raise the Dead as like it's almost like a gimmick for the character I was using it on. Just to have the skeletons roaming around and he has skeletons. On a pet build, I never went for it because there are better constellations to go for a pet build, and you already have a ton of pets. Now that Raise the Dead skeletons are more for casters that, you know, like this text says, wants to have just pets roaming around with them. It's exactly what you want out of this ability now. It's a major change to this ability, and if you're running Aether or Vitality damage, you may use this constellation regardless of your build. I know of at least my 2 Aether Ray guys, the one with legendaries and the one that's green, both are picking this constellation up. I may grab it on my druid that's using Lightning Aether. I may grab it on, like, say, a Phantasmal Blades character now that's using Frenetic Throw. This is now appealing to that character. It's a big change. Borderline shake-up change to these builds, depending on how strong the skeletons are. That's always the caveat. It is depending on how strong the ability is. But given what the Revenant is as a constellation, combined with what the Raise the Dead ability is going to give you, I think it's going to be a great constellation to pick up for caster characters using Aether and Vitality. It's also on the way to Aeon's Hourglass, because it requires 8 Chaos to get into. Aeon's Hourglass, 8 Chaos. You're going to get Aeon's Hourglass with, like, a ton of points to spare. Because Aeon's Hourglass is really easy to get. It's like Sailor's Guide, Eel, Imp, Widow, and then right now you use, like, Vulture and... is it Vulture? I don't remember even what I recommend for it. It's like Vulture and Viper together, and that's all you get. And then you get to your Aeon's Hourglass ability, and you have, like 12, 15 points left. You can easily spare those points to throw in Raise the Dead. So yes, Raise the Dead, the Revenant. The Revenant and Raise the Dead, awesome change. Potentially build defining change. Potentially build enhancing change. And I actually can't wait to get 1008 now, just to throw this on those characters and have them be hybridized summoners. With skeletons that slow, skeletons that deal damage based on their damages, and all around still preserve the damage output of the characters. So yes, Raise the Dead, Revenant, it's gonna be awesome. I can already tell. It's also maybe hinting at that 8th mastery. We'll have to wait and see on that, though. Okay, Rend, reduce resistance reduction, increase bleed damage. Oh, an increase in bleed damage. Huh. Scorpion Sting, reduce defensive ability, reduction. Targa's hammer, reduced weapon damage, increased trauma and physical, added a 0.1 second cooldown. Yeah, this is another one of those that added the cooldown thing, just to smooth the hammers out. So they'll actually not like be on top of each other if you get double procs of it or anything. Tainted Eruption, increased base poison damage, slightly reduced damage scaling with rank. Trample, reduced damage, and increased internal trauma damage. So yeah, there's a theme also of increased like base internal trauma damages. Just base damages in general, or reducing weapon damage. Okay, on to the classes. So Soldier, Blade Arc. Slightly increased bleed damage scaling. Okay, this is the changes they mentioned above. So Blade Arc, Laceration, Blitz. Slightly increased the damages at low ranks. Blindside, and slightly increased internal trauma damage. Deadly Momentum, added internal trauma damage. Slightly reduced physical damage. Decorated Soldier, increased physical damage at ultimate ranks, added internal trauma damage bonus. Okay, that works. Because Decorated Soldier is the passive that gives physical damage and elemental res. So having that add internal trauma damage and be an all-around like mastery for that is a nice addition. I like this one. Discord. Physical damage dealt as elemental damage increased to 100% by rank 3. So anyone that's looked at Discord knows that it gives you, I think, 50% elemental conversion of the physical damage from Cadence. So the actual physical damage proc, that's what gets the conversion, not all of your damages while doing the Cadence pop. At least as far as I know. So what this means is, if you have, say, a battle mage, you're running conversion, and you're using like a Scoundrel's Elemental Exchange, and you get like that full-on 25% conversion, odds are you'll be able to just do 2 points on Discord now, and you convert all of the physical damage on Cadence to elemental damage. So this allows you to either A, just straight up convert all of Cadence's physical damage to elemental damage, or B, lets you fine-tune that with Discord. Let's see. Internal trauma. Slightly increased bleed, internal trauma damage, Markovian advantage. There's that nice low-level buff. Maynard's Bulwark. Reduced physical damage scaling with rank. Reduced life damage reduction. Okay. Maynard's Bulwark. Okay. I don't think I have any character actually using that. Military Conditioning. Reduce the percent health bonuses at ultimate ranks. That's fine, because I don't know anyone that really takes that in the high-end ultimate ranks. 12 out of 12 on that, and maintaining it at 12 out of 12 for Military Conditioning is actually pretty solid. Overguard. Adjusted damage absorption scaling with rank, such that more of it is earned at ranks 1 to 12 rather than ultimate ranks. Max ultimate rank value remains unchanged. Increased cooldown to 20 seconds. Reduced shield damage block scaling at ultimate ranks to 235 by max ultimate rank. Added a new transmuter for Overguard. Markovians Defense. Markovians Defense reduces the cooldown of Overguard by 7.5 seconds, but causes Overguard to modify all damage dealt by a negative 26% while active. So this is an interesting change for Overguard. They increase the cooldown. I don't know offhand what it is. 20 seconds is probably close to what it is now. But it sounds like they just increased the cooldown so that you're not being able to spam it a lot, or whatever. It's pretty much one Overguard per fight, or one Overguard per 2 fights. But I think they also did that to make space for this transmuter, where you can get a really, really fast Overguard. But Overguard is now going to reduce your damage. So you could basically keep Overguard up, and Overguard up more with the transmuter, but you yourself aren't going to deal as much damage with it. Basically making you more tanky. Like super mega tanky is a potential thing you can do with this. We'll have to see about that though. It all depends on like a maxed out Overguard combined with Markovian's Defense. And it all depends, like that could be a crap ton of defense up every 10 seconds, potentially. Because you're probably going to have a little bit of cooldown reduction in there. That's going to take a little bit off. Like not a huge amount, but, well, let's say 20% 10 to 12 seconds. On top of, like, if you're using Markovians Fortress or something, you can also get the cooldown reduction procs off that. That plus Markovians Defense means super huge tank, but your damage is reduced. However, if you're super DPS-y, but want this burst tankiness, that's a weird thing to think of and a weird thing to say out loud, is burst tankiness. This transmuter could potentially be for you. So if you're a heavy DPS soldier combo, but you want to have a shield and pop overguard when you need it, this could potentially be for you. It's going to be interesting to see what builds can be pulled out of that new overguard. Shield training removed the physical damage bonus. You know, honestly, it's totally fine. Shield training, you're not picking it up to give your shield bonus damage for, like, force waves or something. You're picking it up to make your shield better. It's shielding you. Squad tactics slightly increased all damage scaling at ultimate ranks. Hey, I'm fine with that. That's awesome. Anytime there is increased, even if it's slight increase, I'm totally fine with it. Zulhan's technique slightly increased. Okay, that's the low level thing. Increased weapon damage scaling. Okay, little buff to Zulhan's technique. So let's see. Demo. Blackwater Cocktail. Reduced offensive ability reduction scaling at ultimate ranks. Reduced duration to 3 seconds, so enemies must stand within the flame to maintain the debuff for longer. Agonizing Flames. Same thing. Reduced resistance reduction. Ultimate. You have to stand in the flame to get the debuff longer. That's totally fine. That's kind of like Blackwater Cocktail. Almost as a utility ability is kind of ridiculous. How many reductions you can apply to the enemy off of that one ability. Demon Fire, slightly increased damage scaling at low ranks. High Potency, increased damage modifier by 175%. Reduce the physical damage reduction to 18%, requiring enemies to stand in flu. Okay, yeah. Making it so that you actually have to throw out more cocktails and kind of aim a little better to get these reduction bonuses applied for a long time. Blast Shield, reduce the damage absorption at ultimate ranks. Increase the cooldown, reduce health activation threshold to 60%. Pardon my sip of water there. Yeah, Blast Shield's kind of crazy when you get it really high rank. So I kind of understand them wanting to reduce it. Reduce its impact on your character with what it is. But, I mean, it's not like it's a crazy ability. It does give you a laundry list of resistances and damage absorption and projectile avoidance, but still, it's not like it's breaking a character. And I've always thought Blast Shield was kind of almost like a bastard stepchild ability in the Demolitionist tree, and I don't think it really needed a nerf at all. I mean, in all honesty, like maybe they could have done just the cooldown changes or the threshold change, but yeah, it's always, I don't know. I don't think it needs a heavy-handed nerf. That's what I'm saying. So Flame Touched. Slightly increased Fire, Lightning, Burn damage scaling. Added Electrocute bonus. How many bonuses are you going to add to Flame Touched and Temper? Slightly reduced the fire damage and offensive ability scaling at ultimate ranks. Which is totally fine. Temper. Slightly increased the physical pierce scaling. Increased the internal trauma damage scaling. Slightly reduced flat bonuses. Yada yada yada. Full spread. Slightly increased electrocute internal trauma. Okay, full spread heavy ordnance, improved casing, all of the low level bonuses. Searing light, reduced chance to fumble. That sucks. Because now that, like, flashbangs are on a cooldown, I don't know why they nerf them more. I don't even use them anymore. Huh. So, Thermite Mines. Oh yeah, Shattering Force, increased base internal trauma damage. Thermite Mines, reduced fire lightning resistance reduction. Scaling with rank. That's understandable, because that's pretty much what they're used for, and they're actually kind of ridiculously powerful as resistance reducers. Hellfire Mines get that low level bonus. So, Blood of Dreeg, slightly reduced offensive ability scaling at ultimate ranks. Reduced heal scaling at ultimate ranks. Increased acid damage scaling at 1 through 5. Slightly reduced acid damage scaling at ultimate ranks. Aspect of the Guardian. Slightly increased scaling at ultimate ranks. Blood Burst. Viral Eruption. Bloody Pox. Okay, Bloody Pox, the good thing is the cooldown's reduced. You can just spam it. Excuse me, so you can just spam it a little more. My voice is a going. I'm doing this all in one take, in one sitting. So, wasting. Okay. Black Death. Increased poison damage scaling with rank. Chance to confuse now scales with rank. Now also increased duration of Bloody Pox. Oh, that's cool. So Black Death will increase the duration of the overall ability. Ember Claw. So let's see. Ember Claw, Hellfire, Rage, Doombolt. Reduced energy cost, increased damage scaling, current life, or percent current life damage now scales with rank. Let's see. Lightning Strike. Okay, that's all just tweaking stuff. Nightblade. Amaras's Quick Cut, slightly increased damage scaling. Yeah, okay. Anatomy Murder increased. Devouring Blades increased. I'm just gonna see if there's anything that's like a really notable huge change. Lethal Assault. Redistributed cold and acid damage bonuses such that they are equal. Total bonus remains roughly the same across all ranks. That's fair. You want that to be equal for Lethal Assault, so both build types get a bonus out of it. Heartseeker reduced the overall damage converted to health. I like that for Frenetic Throw, so that the Pierce deals more vitality damage instead. Ring of Steel, increased starting weapon damage bonuses, scaling rank. Okay, all that's pretty standard. So, Arcanist, Disintegration, Distortion, Supercharged Proliferation, all that low-level buff. Elemental Balance, increase the damages. Overload, slightly increase the elemental damage. Forever Reality, increase the Aether Chaos damages. Frozen Core, Shattered Star Inferno, same stuff. Low-level bonuses. Electra's Flash Freeze, damage scaling with rank reduced. The skill now scales better at ultimate rank such that the damage lost by max ultimate rank is less than 5% of its previous value. Okay, that's fine. Here's a big one. Miva Sphere Protection, penalty to physical damage, removed. Total damage penalty can now be reduced to 0 by max ultimate rank. Nobody cares about that damage penalty, in all honesty. It's too good an ability to pass up. And now, that physical damage reduction, gone. Battle Mages rejoice. You can now just pick up Miva Sphere and use it for whatever your build is. Extra Flash Freeze. Use cooldown if I say. Ooh, I like that. Or Wrath of Agarex. Okay. Yeah, Shaman, Upheaval. I'm not seeing anything crazy on the Shaman. It's all the same tweaks. Okay. So, mercifully, thankfully, done. I can go give my vocal cords a rest. So that was the patch notes for 1008. My big thing is the Revenant Constellation being the best thing ever. Raise the Dead is gonna be a thing I'm gonna integrate into a lot of builds. The Revenant as a constellation, super strong. Raise the Dead is just even stronger now. And yeah, the Voidwalker boots and the Wormscale foot guards. Take homes from that are carry them with you. I like the auras just being self-buffs now. I mean, they really were self-buffs before. When you break it down, that's just what they were. And having them as auras, it did affect pets a bit, but they're going to preserve that aspect of those things still. And of course, Alkamos and Sharzul getting legendary versions of their equipment is a nice addition to the game. So, thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know what you think of these patch notes in the comments below. Thanks for watching again, and I will see you guys next time.